Hey, and welcome to the Still Moving Podcast. This is Tim.
And I'm Andrew.
And we are here to talk today. Let's get this theme song going.
Let's do it.
And we are back once again talking about all of life's important issues.
Like Ninja Turtles.
Really?
I don't know.
Is that important to you?
It was at one point, right?
Do you know what? There was a point in my life where Ninja Turtles were very important to me. And in fact, actually, there was even another point in my life where Power Rangers were even more important.
Isn't that nuts how, like, through life, things become, like, the most important, and then they shift out to where we don't care about them anymore?
No, that's true. I actually have a very, I would say, an obsessive personality. Like, when I find something I like, I tend to obsess over it.
Yeah.
And especially, like, back in the day, like, Ninja Turtles, when I was into that, I was definitely into that. And then Power Rangers, like, to this day, I still have such a vivid dream of being the Red Ranger. And if you don't know Power Rangers, the Red Ranger was the ranger in charge, and he was, like, the team leader. And I
was like the Blue Ranger.
It was such... You were the Blue Ranger?
I just liked him. I liked him better than the Red Ranger.
When I played with my friends, like when we played Power Rangers, because you do that, I was the Blue Ranger all the time. Probably because I had glasses.
Maybe because you didn't feel like a leader to your friends.
That's probably it. You probably get into some social...
They're like, you're a follower, Tim.
Yeah.
Okay.
But to this day, like, one of the most vivid dreams I've ever had in my whole life, I still remember it. I was like in 3rd grade, and I dreamt that I was the Red Ranger. And I had the best time ever. Like, you hear people talk about, like, lucid dreaming and stuff, and I really felt like I was in control of that dream.
Interesting. As a Red Ranger.
As the Red Ranger. And it was the time of my life. And then I remember waking up the next morning, and I was so disappointed.
Really?
That it was all a dream.
Really? See, I rarely have dreams. Like, I've had more nightmares than I've had regular dreams. Maybe that's just my personality, too. Like, coming out. But, like, I've always feared, like, death and heaven in dreams. Super weird concepts, right? And I was battling those from, like, early on.
Really big spiritual battles happening in your conscience.
Death and heaven. Because I was always afraid of heaven because I wasn't sure what it was.
Huh.
So the concept of heaven to me was like, do they have Walmart? Am I going to have a bike? You know what I mean? Like, little simple children things.
Yeah.
But it was like, what is this?
What is your picture of heaven now?
My picture of heaven isn't what others is. I don't really know what my picture of heaven is. Because what I think about it and what is described is New Jerusalem, right? I don't necessarily believe that's heaven. I don't really know. That's New Jerusalem coming down to earth. But do we go there when we die? I don't know what heaven is. I really don't, I guess.
Well, yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, because in our culture, we've been, every picture you see of heaven or something like that, it's this cloudy image.
Yeah.
I remember from just songs my grandparents used to sing back in the day, it's the streets are paved with gold, pearly gates, right? So you imagine this place up in the sky.
I guess that's what it was as a kid. Is that type of imagery, right? Streets of gold, cloud-based floor, right? With kind of like a fence of gold or emerald or I don't know, whatever I kind of like the Wizard of Oz palace, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Streets of gold. But I like that was a really big fear of mine, just the unknown.
Yeah. And
then death. I'd always wake up afraid of death. Which is very weird for like a 6 and a 7-year-old to be thinking about, right?
Yeah, that's a very advanced.
Yeah, those are hard concepts to deal with
at that age.
And like I would always go into my mom's room because I was like crying, right? And she was like, "It's fine, Andrew. You're fine right now, right?" But I would always battle these really deep concepts.
Right.
This is very interesting.
Huh.
Yeah, but I don't dream hardly any. It's just when I do remember a dream, it's usually a nightmare.
So heaven, I want to, like heaven, this is something that I've really like come around on. Like I've been kind of studying heaven these last few years. And
what was your initial thought?
So like everyone else, the idea of pearly gates, Wizard of Oz castle,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The golden streets of gold. But the more you read the Bible, it doesn't. I don't.
Doesn't even mention it hardly.
Well, yeah, it's all poetic and all
Mhm.
the things that are talked about. But the more like you kind of read the scriptures, is heaven even the place for man to be?
That's a very interesting concept because you could really think, it may have just been this place of escape that these writers or these people that were dealing with things were like, one day we will get, you know what I mean?
Well, because so you read even the original authors. I don't know if it's I don't think they saw heaven as the place for men.
Really?
Because
Now that's very interesting.
The Bible's written in the beginning. God created the heavens and the earth,
Mhm.
right? And if everything was good in the beginning before man sinned, then why didn't God, if his end goal was to put men in heaven, why didn't he put men in heaven? Why did he create heaven and earth and put men on earth?
I don't know.
Right? And so then it becomes this like, this thought to me then is, well, maybe heaven isn't our final destination.
Okay.
Maybe, and so then it makes, you talk about New Jerusalem, that happens in Revelation. We see at the end of times, John's revelation is that
Almost seems
New
like an
Jerusalem
alien
comes
invasion,
down from heaven,
which
right?
is interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting now, thinking about the imagery of the Bible, how playing towards it now, it's like, well, a lot of that could necessarily be modern technology. It really could.
It could. Well, I think it's a true spiritual thing that comes down, though.
Mhm.
But his image, though, isn't. And in the end, we all were swooped up, and in heaven. No, his
we reign
image,
on earth.
His final image is heaven comes down.
Yeah.
To earth,
Which is very interesting.
to new heaven and new earth. And so, our final destination as men isn't heaven; it's earth. But a new earth.
Interesting. I don't know. I don't necessarily have the answers, and that seems plausible. But I also have this weird concept, and I don't know if this is just my mind simplifying it, that there's more, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have Earth,
Mm-hmm.
but after we're done with Earth, I feel like there's something else. And maybe it's just my mind making it easier, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's an eternity, right?
Right.
If you're thinking about it, it's an eternity. Is it an eternity on Earth? Is there an eternity other places? Like, I don't want to go really hardcore Mormonism and be like, we're going to be searching the galaxy.
We
We're
each get our own
gods.
planet.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to say that. But I mean, there is a vast universe,
Yeah.
right? And I think it's very unlikely for me, in my mind, which I'm not God and I don't know, that he created this vast universe and only a portion of it has some type of life on it.
Right. Well, maybe the vast universe is for eternity to find out, right?
Maybe. It's an interesting concept.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, a lot of people think that, knowledge came. I don't know how I want to go down this road, but
Are you talking about before sin, there was
Yeah.
no knowledge?
Well, yeah, and so a lot of people think because the tree was the tree of knowledge of good and evil that Adam ate the fruit from. And so a lot of people get this idea that Adam didn't have intelligence until he ate the fruit. But I think God made him and gave him everything he needed to rule the earth, to have authority in this world, before he ate the fruit.
So
And
you
then-
don't see knowledge as necessarily sin then.
No.
You think there was knowledge and then sin was this just object, but you don't see as knowledge as a sin.
No.
Interesting.
See, and a lot of Christians for a lot of eras think of it that way. And I actually think that the more we become like God as far as being made holy and be made in the image of Christ, more knowledge will become available. And I'm thinking in this new heaven and new earth, it's not a garden that's in the future, it's a city, right?
That is true.
And so we are actually made to live in the city. We're made to come together and to bring our knowledge together.
These are really crazy concepts.
In Genesis, the people came together after the flood, and they started building the Tower of Babel because they're doing just like Adam and Eve tried to become like God. And, they wanted to reach the heavens, and God, because of their sin, he said no. He put an end to it, and he scattered the people. Right?
Do you think? Okay,
but
question. Do you think that Adam knew what he was doing, like while he was eating? Like, do you think he was like, obviously he sinned, but do you think he knew, or was it a thing of, oh, and then he just continued?
No, I think it was a deliberate sin.
You think it was like, give me some of that fruit? You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I think he knew. Did he completely understand the consequences? I don't think so. But did he know that what he was doing was against what God told him? Yes, I believe so. Because I believe he consciously sinned just as much as Jesus consciously died for our sins.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because we have that scripture that says, in Adam all men die, but in Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so and then the first thing Adam does, he blames the woman, and then the woman blames the snake, and it becomes this big old sin blaming game, which is what we do when we're caught, right? Because why would he? I don't know. I feel like
he had to know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I always think about it. I'm like, because when you read, obviously when you read the little poem, the beginning, and then the secondary poem, it's more like he's like, where'd you get this fruit? I'm hungry. Give me some. You know what I mean? It doesn't. That's how it comes off to me. Not like, give me that fruit. You know what I mean?
Well, I would need to pull my Bible out. I can't remember. Doesn't he even say? Doesn't he ask her where she got it or something like that? All right,
I think so.
I'm gonna pull out the Bible.
I'm not sure. We're very spiritual right now because we just came back from a conference last week. If this is not our normal show, we don't go super hard in depth into scripture, but maybe we will. Who knows?
Maybe it'll be good for us.
Maybe we should continue to go back.
All right. My big old Bible looks like I'm very spiritual here.
It does. It looks very crisp and new, like you don't touch it very often.
I use my iPad more than I use this. See the nice maps and stuff? I'm very spiritual now. Okay, the serpent said to the woman, did God actually say yada yada? Alright, so the woman, she took fruit and she ate, and she also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate. So he was with her when the serpent was questioning them. So he knew.
He knew.
He knew that the snake was up to no good, and as a man who had dominion over all the animals and all the earth, he should have taken dominion right there and said, you will not, darn you, snake. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like he should have
been like, you snake.
He should, yeah.
You snake.
You deceiving serpent. No, he should have done something.
Yeah, all right.
I totally just kicked your camera.
You just kicked me. It's all right. So I've been reading this book by Bob Goff. He was a speaker at the conference.
Bob Goff.
And he had this new book out called Everyone Always. And he has this he kind of talked about it a little bit at the conference. Being immensely patient is a concept. But truly loving people. He told this story how he was a young lawyer and his company paid for parking in San Diego because there was no parking. So instead of using the money for parking because he was poor and young, he took the money and parked like a mile away or whatever. But he told this story of this homeless man would come and literally sit inside of his car, right, throughout the day while he was at work. And then he'd come out, and the first time he seen him, he kind of just knocked, and the homeless man was like, hey, do you want to go anywhere? And he was like, no, I'm okay, thank you. And then he knocked again to get him out, and then they did this routine for a good long while. But then he came one time, and the homeless man wasn't there again. And he grew this routine, and like this was what they did for a while, and they grew accustomed to this, and this looks something they look forward to. But this homeless man, actually, he wasn't there at one point. And then when he looked in his car, there was a bunch of cigarettes, there was bottles of beer, but the man left because he felt the shame to not face him, because we require an explanation when someone does something wrong. But that's not necessarily what we need to be. We need just to be there and give them the place and to love them. You know what I mean? Because what shame does is makes us explain ourselves. It makes us not want to face our problems. It makes us to run away.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when you see that, you love them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't need the explanation. You just really need to love them. It's a very interesting concept.
So the idea is to not shame people.
Not worry about
cover
their
their shame.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like people will mess up. That's the thing. Just not focusing on that.
Mm-hmm.
To truly love like Jesus did, where he truly loved the sinners and the people, like truly followed his example. Right, and not necessarily required anything else.
See, when you start talking about this in Christianese circles, suddenly you get people saying, "Well, you should love the sinner, but hate the sin, and you should let them know that it's a sin." And often that where's the line between that and showing the grace that you're talking about?
Yeah, it's very interesting because he also said, "I'm going to stop trying to be right."
Yeah.
And he quoted this thing. He's like, every time I'm going to try to correct someone, I hear a whisper. Said, "What are you afraid of?"
Yeah.
Like, you know what's right.
Mm.
What are you afraid of?
Yeah.
Of someone else's opinion. Why do you need to tear down their opinion instead of showing who Jesus is by loving, by doing that example? Isn't it Gandhi that said, if Christians were more like their Christ, they would change the world?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's so true in the fact that we're not at all like Christ.
Right.
We focus on these big concepts, and then we put our lines in the sand, and we make sure no one crosses those lines.
Well, we do the whole tribal thing where we want people to act like us before we accept them.
It's very interesting. We're very tribal. We play a big identity game, like identity politics. We play that as Christians. Mm-hmm. It's very interesting.
Well, we see Christians all the time getting upset at sinners, getting upset at even people among them, like when you're in church long enough, you see people get upset at, well, that person should know better. That person should act better. This person shouldn't be wronging me or wronging the church or they should be doing this, and we get so righteously upset at things. But if you look in the scripture where Jesus got righteously upset, it was never at the sinners. Mm-hmm. He got righteously upset at the Pharisees, people who claimed to be righteous, right? And that's why he says in the Beatitudes, "Blessed are those who are poor in spirit." When I was younger, I always thought, why is he blessing people who are poor in spirit? Doesn't that mean that they don't have enough spirit or something? My mind couldn't grasp that concept until I realized what he's meaning by blessed are those who are poor in spirit. He means blessed are those who realize that they're spiritually poor, who realize that they don't have all the answers, that realize that they need God, right? And so that's who these people that Jesus hung out with, the harlots, the sinners, the tax collectors, the people who were outcast from society, because they knew that they didn't have what the religious people had, right? They didn't have all the answers and they needed Jesus, right? And so often as we, in our Christian circles, we get into this, especially as you start learning more about theology and learning more, you start getting this knowledge and you start thinking the knowledge is what's saving me and the knowledge is what's making me a better person. When in fact, it's the opposite. It's Jesus that saves us. It's Jesus and his spirit that makes us better, right? And not better so that we can flaunt it over other people, but better so we can help other people and so we can become the light that we need to become.
Yeah. It's very interesting because I think sometimes we put the people in the Bible on pedestals, right? Mm-hmm. But really, they're really a lot like us. Yeah. They were us, if you think about it. But even in the fact that they actually got to experience who Christ was. Isn't that weird?
Right.
Like, they had eyewitnesses of the things that happened.
Right.
Why wouldn't you believe that? You know what I mean? Why wouldn't you give your life for something like that? If you actually seen someone do the things that they saw, heard the things that they heard. Mm-hmm. And like you think about Paul, he was so precise in his words because he had so much history of the Jews. He was Roman. He knew the word, and then Christ flipped him around in what he saw. I think a lot of times we don't get to see a lot of that. And here's what I mean, and I'm not trying to be like super spiritual here, but we don't get to see Christ as they saw him. We see glimpses of him, right? We see little things in the world. Maybe we see a little vision or something, but they actually saw who Christ was by eyewitnesses, right? We take a lot of things by faith.
Right.
And then we question ourselves that we're not adequate like them. You know what I mean? In reality, we may be far greater than them because we have faith in something that is years removed from us.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I totally agree with that.
This just clicked in my mind the other day. It's like, why are we holding these pillars, which they are pillars. They are. I'm not saying they aren't. Why are we holding them on such pedestals?
You're talking about the apostles.
When the apostles,
the writers.
Yeah, the writers, they were just men.
Right.
But they got to experience who God was and really have an interaction with him. Whereas us, in today's time, we don't get that.
Right. Well, and so, in fact, you're right. I 100% agree that you're right. In fact, we should be able to be doing greater things in this world because we have a greater chance of showing our faith.
Yeah, which is very interesting.
Right? No, I totally agree with that. And it takes a lot of faith, it takes a lot of trust to believe in a God that you don't see. They got to see, but here's the deal. The Pharisees saw the miracles up close.
That is true. I guess that's true.
Right? The religious people at the time, they all saw Jesus, and they all had the chance. They knew he rose from the dead. Right? There were so many eyewitnesses of those miracles.
You know what's interesting though is you don't hear any account of the Pharisees after. You do a little bit.
Well, there was a big Roman purge of them.
Yes, right. But you don't. I wonder what their thought process was after they seen Jesus, after they crucified him. Do you think they were just like flabbergasted? Because like, for argument's sake, like, you really have to be crazy to just imagine Jesus, right? That after he died, that he came back to life.
Right.
But then, how many people saw Jesus, right? Did everyone mass hallucinate? No, that's not likely,
not
right?
Possible.
It's not even possible that everyone had the same
mass hallucination.
Well,
and here's the thing too, because the lie was going around at the time that they were making it up, right? That, we think that we are so smart nowadays. We think, oh, well, maybe it was all made up years later. And the thing is that explanation was actually going around at the time, or even people were saying that it was made up. But then you see how many of these apostles and how many of these disciples died.
Yeah, that's got to be some. So that's the most craziest thing.
It's one thing to live for a lie. It's another thing to die for one.
Could you die for a lie?
No.
I wouldn't.
What's the gain?
Nothing. Your reputation? Does that reputation
all
matter?
These men, they died poor. They died. They were worse off in this world because of the truth that they were taking with them to the grave.
That's very interesting for me, and I get atheist reaction towards like creation or whatever. You know what I mean? I get the atheist reaction towards, but to really say that this is all made up based on the fact that these men all died for it, to me is like, well, how do you explain that away? That they were just nuts?
There's this awesome book called The Evidence That Demands a Verdict, and it's written by Josh McDowell, and he's an apologist, so that means that he goes through and explains the Christianity and the basic tenets of what we believe and why it's okay to believe that, and he explains. He really goes into depth on these things, and he even talks about like even things like the first women to witness the resurrection of Christ. It was women. It wasn't men.
Yeah.
And so if you were making the story up, especially if you were from that time period, you wouldn't make.
I've heard this.
You wouldn't choose women.
Yeah.
To be your witness.
No, you wouldn't.
Right? Why? If you're making all this up, what? Like these people, they written in their own issues. Like Peter wrote, he would have made up that he was a flawed character, right? All of Jewish history, it's flawed kings and it's like if you look at all the other histories of all the other civilizations of the world, you see these kings, and because the victor writes the history in most cases, right?
Yeah.
And so you don't write your problems, you don't write your infidelities, you don't write your all the horrible things that happen in your family, right? But Jewish history, it's full of all these bad things that they themselves have done.
Yeah, that's good.
And about how their God is punishing them, and how their God has saved them and redeemed them, and it's because the reason is because it's truth.
Yeah,
they're recording actual history.
I would agree with
right? And so that alone allows me to rest assured that what I'm believing is truth, because, like we said, why would they die for a lie?
Yeah. But with this conversation, I really want to focus on what Bob Goff said, is I'm going to stop trying to be right. Even with that truth that I believe. I'm going to stop trying to prove that.
Yeah.
And just start loving more people.
No, I think that's...
You know what I mean? Because I think, I agree. I agree 100%. It's completely true. And I can't really... I can argue all day about it, right? Because I'm like, I don't see your point. Right. You know what I mean? You don't see my point. But I think that's not what the purpose is.
Right. Well, I mean, Jesus himself said, one of his they call it in the Bible his high priestly prayer. It's in the book of John somewhere. And it's one of his last prayers over the disciples. And he literally says, Father, let them be known for their love, is what he says. He doesn't say let them be known for their rightness, let them be known for their power, let them be known for their deeds. He says let them be known for their love. And it's so easy to try to rely on my knowledge of Scripture. It's so
or
easy,
even intellect.
Or to rely on your intellect. But in order to make a difference in this world, I agree with you, and I agree with Bob Goff, we need to rely on our love. We need to make sure we're loving well. I spoke with the youth last night, and I didn't know how they would receive this message, and some of them might have just gone over their head, but it's little do they know it's a message I'm probably going to be repeating over and over again some way or somehow over the next many months, is this idea of I'm going to start leading them up instead of when they do things wrong, or even when they do things right, I'm not going to be calling them out. I'm going to be calling them up, which means that they're going to make mistakes, and I'm going to have grace for that.
Yeah.
Right? Because my job isn't to be their judge. My job is to disciple them. My job is to lead them to their calling, right? God has called them to do something in this world. My job is to help them find out what that is, and to help them see past what's going on right now in this world, what's going on in their lives, see past the problems that they're carrying. I'm going to help them carry those problems, but at the same time, see that they're made for more than all these small dramas that they're getting themselves into day to day, right? And I really feel like this is going to be so we heard the speaker at Catalyst last week, his name is Cooke, kind of talk about this. And he used Gideon as his example in Scripture. And it's an amazing story where God calls Gideon a mighty hero when Gideon was hiding by himself in a wine press, right? And so before he even proved himself as any kind of hero, God called him one. And the idea is God sees our potential. He doesn't see us for the faulty little halflings that we are. He sees us for our full potential down the road.
Yeah.
And so we as people, we need to be relying more on that identity that's being given to us rather than the circumstances that we find ourselves in.
Yeah, he said something very interesting. He said, when God shows up, your new self shows up.
Right.
Which is very interesting, and he said not to focus on who you were, but to focus on who God is trying to show you who you are. Mm-hmm. He was actually very profound. He said a lot of things about your identity. Once you start focusing on your identity in God, you start worrying less about your second self.
Right.
Well, he even said, I can't remember how he phrased it, but he said your identity in God will reveal who your identity in you is.
Right. Well, because he pretty much says our identity in God it's our relationship to God, and so our thoughts about God is our most important thought.
Yeah.
And our thoughts about ourselves is our second most important. And so we have to first figure out who God is to us, and then once we have that figured out, then we can figure out who we are. And so a lot of Christians deal with this problem. They don't realize that God is their Father, that God loves them, that God is calling them. Right, and so Gideon had the same issue because God says, you're a mighty hero, and Gideon's first response to God is, well, but there's all these things going on, where were you? And God literally says right after that, he says, I am with you.
That's very interesting because I think we do that as believers, as Christians, as even human beings.
Mm-hmm.
When something doesn't go right, we start focusing on those little things. Like where were you? Even with people, we're like, where were you?
Right.
Where were you? You know what I mean? And I'm like, I'm with your mom, or your dad, or your wife, or like I'm here.
Yeah.
But we don't realize that we're focusing on the wrong things.
Right.
Like, and God is with
we
you.
We get so caught up in the circumstantial mess, the things that are happening right here, right now. We need to have this higher perspective. We need to say instead of what am I doing, the question then becomes who am I becoming?
Very
Right? What am I turning into? C.S. Lewis talks about this a whole lot in his book Mere Christianity, about we're turning into something different. God is changing us into something else.
That's very interesting.
And so it's really important to us to figure out what are we becoming.
Because that's not like a new concept, that creating a new creature, like Christ talks about.
It's in the scripture.
Being born again. But I don't think I really fully comprehended it until he was talking about that when God shows up,
Right.
your new self shows up.
Right.
Because it really is true, because you're different after things happen to you.
And it happens so much in the scripture too. With Gideon, as
Yeah.
soon as God showed up, he was a mighty hero. When God showed up, he was a boy. He was the youngest boy.
He was a king. He was a king after
when God showed up, he's the anointed king.
That's the craziest thing. Like, even with Gideon, he became a hero. Then he went all these things where he ended up with, 30,000 he started with.
Right.
Ended up with 300. What was it?
I think less than 300, yeah.
Yeah, and then they didn't have weapons.
Yeah.
They just had instruments and light.
Yeah.
Which is super crazy, right? But even with David, he started off as a little shepherd boy that would fight a lion occasionally, which is pretty impressive if you really think about it. The dude fought a lion.
Yeah.
And bears. But he started off as a little shepherd boy and became a king.
Right. And the idea is God anointed him as a boy.
As a boy.
He didn't become a king until he was a man.
Yeah.
Until he was way older.
And what did he go through even to getting to king?
But he knew his whole life his true identity.
That's crazy.
And he worked towards that, right? He did good things on the way there, right? He did bad things too.
You know what's interesting that is even when he was king, he did bad things. He still was king.
Right.
God still saw him as king.
Right.
Even when he did the bad things. God still sees who you are.
Right.
Even when you're not making these choices.
Isn't it interesting? The relationship doesn't change.
No, we change.
Right.
Because we stop viewing ourselves as he's viewing us.
Right.
Which is very profound thought.
Very interesting. I can't remember who said it, but he said, our sin doesn't make God love us less. Our sin makes us love God less.
Yeah.
And the deal is God doesn't change. He's who he is. He's our good father. He doesn't change. It's we who are changing, right?
Yeah.
And it's us who are moving. And so we need to get this idea that, guess what? God says, I will be with you always. Jesus said, I'll be with you always, even to the ends of the earth. God's not leaving. And so when we are feeling like it's getting darker, when we're feeling like we're getting further away from God, it's not God's moving away from us. It's we have found ourselves away from him.
Yeah, we're drifting.
We're drifting. And the good thing is Jesus reveals himself as their good shepherd. And when the sheep goes off, what does the good shepherd do? He brings the lamb back.
Who was it? Bob Goff that talked about the compass?
I can't remember.
Finding true north.
Probably. I can't remember what he said.
Well, he said that finding true north is very easy once you have a compass. I don't think this was his exact words, but I'm paraphrasing here. But if you're going a short distance, finding true north is very easy.
Mm-hmm.
Going off course isn't really difficult. But if you're going a far away,
right.
and you have a couple degrees off, you completely miss things. Right. So we focus on back to the true north, that who God sees us. Right. Because if you keep going and you're a little bit off of not seeing who God sees you, you're gonna miss what God had for you.
Right.
Because you're on a different course, even if it's a small trajectory.
Yeah, C.S. Lewis actually talks about the same thing. I wonder how much he stole from C.S. Lewis.
I know.
Now I want to compare his books. But a slight turn. If I'm walking to you right now, we're like only a few feet apart. If I just turn slightly, I'm still going to hit you. If I walk, even if I turn slightly, right? But if you were a mile away and I turned slightly right now and started walking, we'd end up a mile apart from each other.
Yeah.
Right? And the same thing with God. Like, sin turns us away from God. And our inability, and sin isn't just the bad things we do, but it's also the good things we don't do. right? A lot of us, we have this idea that sin, it's the, I don't know, it's the swearing and the pornography and the and all these bad things that that we always call sin in church, which they are sins, but sin is also the things that God has called us to do that we didn't do. It's called sin of omission, right? And so by us, every little sin that we have in our life, it's turning our compass away from true north. And the further, if we don't turn back, if we don't repent and turn back the right way, we're going to end up far away from God.
Yeah, which is so crazy. Every little thing matters.
Yeah.
You don't think it does, but every little degree matters.
And so that's why it's important to encourage people.
I think so too.
And that's why I think church and I think Christianity, we need to be known for our encouragement. Like church, it needs to be a family. It needs to be a place where people feel loved.
I agree. And you know what else? It needs to be fun.
Yeah.
Because if it's always a stick up in the butt, it's just quite annoying. And like it's not helping anyone.
Right.
Be kind and really just be fun.
Do you know what? It should be a celebration every week. It should be a family get together.
Like a family reunion?
Those
get pretty hanky.
Well,
depending on the family.
Yeah. But it should be a fun celebration.
It really should.
And to the best that we can, I think we're going to try to make our church be like that.
Yeah, we're starting some things from Catalyst. I'm going to start doing a small group.
Cool.
On Fridays. You're obviously going.
Yep.
Anybody who else wants to go, you're welcome to come to my house. Look up for the address. Or text
DM
me.
him.
DM me. Or dude, I think it's on Facebook or Google. I don't know. Just search me.
Right. Good thing we don't have a wide audience yet. Might get some crazies in there.
You know what? I don't even care.
Well, come.
Bob Goff literally has his phone number in his books, right? And he prints them and sells them.
All right, so give them your social security number then.
Like that LifeLock guy, remember he gave
LifeLock guy.
Like he's like, here's my social security. His identity actually got stolen. If you didn't know,
his whole business is to make sure that they don't get stolen. That's great.
Yeah, it's super funny. So off of Catalyst, since we've talked a big portion of Catalyst and how it impacted us. What's your overall grade of Catalyst? Would you recommend Catalyst to people?
Oh yeah. Catalyst, well, I think I would recommend it to people who are interested in leadership. Like, even though I think it's great for anyone who would come, but Catalyst is a place where you really get it's a 2-day event, and it's this huge download of leadership information.
Yeah,
even if you're not even in church leadership, just you can take this and
apply there was a bunch of business stuff there while I was at Catalyst. Like they were talking, there was that one guy who was talking about millennials and baby boomers, how we're missing each other because we can't communicate with each other.
These are all just concepts you can apply to any business, really. And so, but also at the same time, the beauty of Catalyst is it's also very much biblical based, and it's not so interested in denominations. It's more interested in the whole church, the whole kingdom of God.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's what I love about Catalyst. And so I would highly recommend anyone who wants to go.
Yeah, so I would pay for it out of pocket, every single day. No, I would be broke. But I would go to it time and time again, and I think I'm going to continue going to it.
Yeah, I think I'll probably go as long as I can for the rest of my life.
As long as I can, yeah.
It's kind of like it's like a spiritual retreat a little bit.
Yeah, it's like camp.
It's like renewal. It gets you fired up and gets your brain moving, and you're like, wow, we can do so much to impact the kingdom of God.
Yeah, because you see other people, and while their resources are probably different and everything, but you see people really trying to make an impact.
Right.
Where you can come back and apply that to your life, where it's time.
Right.
Why am I not? Why am I looking at all these circumstances?
Well, because especially when you work in a small church, right? And even though our church really, by definition, is not a small church.
I came from a small church. That's a small church.
Right.
Our church is actually a big church for me.
Well, statistically,
it is
our
small.
church is small. Statistically, our church is a medium-sized church.
Oh, really?
Like, statistically, most churches are under 80 people. And so, but here's the deal. By small church, there's few people in leadership is what I mean by small in this case.
Got it.
We get so mired in our own problems, and we get this small church thinking kind of idea going on. We don't realize what's going on everywhere else throughout the country,
I think
throughout the world.
I think so. I think we forget about how big the world is,
right,
and how much like God really loves it,
right.
You know what I mean?
And how much God is doing even in our own little community. And so, going to events like this where you remember there's an outside world, and it helps you just kind of get out of your own little box, and it helps you spread out a little bit more and think bigger picture.
Yeah, I agree.
Think it's a good thing.
I think it's a super good. And I recommend Catalyst if you want to go. Go. And if you're on the fence, literally go, because it's really tremendous. What else is going on in your life, Tim? We've been 2 weeks without.
I know, huh?
So we went super spiritual. Now let's go super secular. Go.
Super secular. Okay, go.
Beyonce.
Super secular. Okay, well, really not a whole lot has been going on. I've been trying to catch up at work with, since I took a 2-week leave since the baby was born. But really, the baby's been taking up a lot of our time lately.
Yeah.
She's she's turning 7 weeks. Actually, she's 7 weeks old today.
Wow.
So
that's crazy.
She's growing. She's actually starting to smile more.
Almost 2 months.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
Time flies.
I know, it really does fly.
It really does.
And so, really, that's like the biggest part of my life right now is the baby, because literally,
Yeah,
when
for
I'm
me,
not working, I'm with her.
Work is basically the only thing besides I don't have a baby, I don't have a wife or whatever. But no, but I'm really excited about Avengers Infinity War.
There we go.
You're not really excited as much as
Well,
I
if we
am.
want to talk about pop culture, there's a lot of things I'm excited about.
Well, okay, what pop culture? What are you excited about?
Okay, Cheryl and I started watching Lost in Space this week. They rebooted the show. It was a show back in the 60s. They rebooted it on Netflix.
I seen it. I checked it out, but I was like, I don't know. Like,
it is so good. Oh my gosh, it is so good.
Really?
It is so good.
Yeah, I haven't watched it.
You would love it.
I've been watching this new show called Bool.
Bool. I haven't heard of that one.
So it's all about trial science.
Huh.
So what they do is they find the juror.
Is it a documentary?
No. It's actual
it's a
like
drama.
Show. It's a drama show. But they actually get mirror jurors, and then they do a bunch of run through of court with their mirror jurors, and then they have them in the audience, and then when they are doing stuff, they'll try to win them by researching their mirror jurors and stuff like that, and jurors. So right,
is it a scripted drama? Or
yeah, it is. So what they'll do is they'll say things to try to bring them back on their side, and then this guy's a psychologist. It's just a really good show.
Is it on Netflix?
No, it's on CBS.
CBS. Okay.
Yeah.
Bool. BOOL.
BULL. Like bull.
Oh, like a bull.
Like a bull.
animal.
Yeah.
Huh.
I like it a lot.
Alright.
It's slow a little bit, but like just the concept is really good, and it's starting to pick up with like getting into their lives here in a minute. It's slowly doing that.
Cool.
But I like it. So this Lost in Space, what would you say is the biggest appeal from it? Is it just like sci-fi?
Well, the premise is it's Earth is going to hell in a handbasket. So always in all these shows, right? And so they found this new colony called Alpha Centauri, which is a planet, and it's in the next solar system over, right? It's a binary solar system. And
what does that mean, binary?
2 stars.
Oh,
isn't that interesting? Planets go between 2 stars.
They've actually discovered that.
Yeah,
you know that?
Yeah, that's a real place.
Well, because they the reason I know this is because they actually were making fun of Star Wars for its concept of having 2 suns, but then they recently discovered like a planet, like a solar system with 2 suns, which is kind of interesting.
Well, that's cool, huh? So anyway, Earth, they have the ability to travel to this new planet, and so that they're not just taking anyone. They have to like pass all these tests in order to go through, right?
What's their mechanics for? Did they explore that at all?
They haven't really.
Because I'm always fascinated, and I know it's sci-fi, but I'm always fascinated with how they do it. You know what I mean?
I don't think it's like warp. Well, it has to be something like warp speed or something, because they have to go fast. They have to go faster than light to really get out of the solar system.
I'm very interested in that mechanic.
Well, so the premise of the show though is it's a family that they're taking the space station. They each have every family has their own spaceship. It's called a Jupiter and then a number. So like Jupiter 17, Jupiter 20, Jupiter blah blah. And it's all part of this bigger space station called the Resolute. Mm-hmm. And the Resolute is taking them to Alpha Centauri. Right? Something happens. Right? There's this attack on the Resolute. But most people don't realize it's an attack. And all these family spaceships are thrown to this random planet that we don't know where it came from, how it got there. So the opening of the first pilot is this family surviving crash landing
Interesting.
on this planet, and then the youngest boy discovers a robot and befriends this robot. And I don't know. Here's it all. Like, Cheryl didn't think she would like it, and I got her to watch the first episode with me. She's hooked. Like, we'll probably watch the whole season within the next week now. I love it when that happens.
Binging.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is with Netflix, you really search for that. Now that you have the ability to do that, you really search for a series to just grab.
I love a good binge.
It's me too. It's honestly like a good book.
Yeah, it really is.
Like when you grab a book, you want it to be the first 3 pages to be like.
That's why I like TV shows better than movies. Like, because you get to explore the characters more. You know.
I do like TV shows, but I love the movie experience. I love the story, how it's broken down, and it's finite. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I don't like. Sometimes TV shows
they just go on
and they don't really get to anything. You know what I mean? It's just like a lot of it's fill.
Yeah.
And it's not like a tight story.
Yeah.
Maybe if it was something super dense, I would like it.
Well-written stories. So, and I feel like Lost in Space is actually pretty. It's well written. Yeah. And the Marvel TV shows, they're pretty dense too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because even though the good thing about comic book stories is they have a lot of source material.
That's true.
Right?
That's
and
true.
So
I think that's what's hard about TV shows for them to be organically good is that they really have nothing to base it off. It's just
right.
like a concept idea.
Right. Well, think about like older shows. I say older, but I mean I guess it's really old now. Lost.
Yeah.
Right.
It is. It's like 2000 when it came out.
Yeah, 2000.
Wow.
Maybe it's 2004. 2000.
I
can't remember.
I don't even know.
But the first season was fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's because the first season was so well conceived. You know, J.J. Abrams, I think, was the creator of it. And it was so well conceived. The very first episode was, I think it was like one of the highest budgets of TV shows ever
No,
spent.
it was great. Like it grabbed you immediately.
Yeah. And then what happened was, you know, the original creator left the show. The producers changed.
It still was good, and it still was like taking you. But then they started getting weird and not explaining things.
It started becoming this whole other thing.
Yeah, like that black smoke, because the island needed a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
They were just like Then there was this like guy entering this button, or these series of numbers.
All right.
That there was really no reason for him to be doing it. Right?
I think we're spoiler alert on an old show.
Yeah, well, if you haven't watched Lost, like go watch it. It's still
a great
worth
show.
it.
Yeah.
But they really just lost their concept.
Right. It just drifted so far from the beginning.
But the perfect thing about Lost was the different characters.
Yeah.
Like that was the beauty thing of Lost is learning who these people were before this crash.
Right.
And who they are now on the crash.
Yeah.
Which I thought that's fascinating because like there was people that were criminals that you thought other people were the criminal, but really in reality you thought the people that were criminals were the people you didn't think were criminals.
It was such a great character study of a show.
Yes, it was.
And but anyway, yeah, I think we got to the topic because it drifted from its original season.
Yeah. So, but if this, I would be willing to give Lost because I do like there was that one. I think I watched Stargate.
Okay.
It was one of them, but they were on the ship and they just go into different planets.
Yeah.
It was.
The idea of Stargate is there's different Stargates and you go through the gates.
Yeah, right? That was a good show.
Cool.
There was another. I don't know if it was the original, but it was like a spin-off one that I really really dug because I dug the characters. But then I tried to watch an older one or a newer one.
See, I never got into Stargate. But maybe now I'm thinking I probably ought to.
Well, it was really fascinating because I can't remember why I got into it. Maybe because someone else was into it at the time.
Right.
And then I was like, I like this. But I really have to just be... it has to catch me a little bit. Because if it doesn't catch me, I'm just like, this is boring.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't really care.
Yeah.
So hopefully, you're saying this is a really good show.
Yes.
So hopefully this is
Lost
something that
in
would...
Space on Netflix. Fantastic.
What are some other Netflix shows you've been watching?
Other shows I've been watching recently, I've been binging through. This is not on Netflix. It's on Amazon. All the old Roseanne episodes.
Oh, really?
I grew up with Roseanne, and so I have a lot of nostalgia for it. I love it. It's so good.
Do you know what I really have nostalgia for is
What?
MacGyver.
MacGyver?
Dude, I love MacGyver.
They redid that one.
Yeah, I haven't checked out the new one.
Yeah,
is it good?
I don't know.
I haven't checked it out. But like MacGyver was the cheesiest show in the world, but
Yeah.
the fact that he could escape from an elevator with a rubber band was the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah.
That's not a real show, not a real series, but whatever. Murder, She Wrote, I actually like too.
Really? Okay, are we going into all these old shows?
Yeah,
now?
that we were here.
Maybe.
Did you ever watch Little House on the Prairie?
Little House. I watched a few episodes of that, but Murder, She Wrote, I watched more of those because my grandparents were totally into that. That and Matlock. You ever watch Matlock?
I did watch Matlock. Oh, I forgot about Matlock, that white-haired dude.
Andy Griffith.
Yeah. Oh, it was Andy Griffith.
Yeah.
My dad was really into westerns, so he watched Bonanza,
Yeah.
Gunsmoke, and I think there's another show that he always watched. But dude, I actually hated those shows, but I started to like Bonanza. I don't know, old TV kind of depresses me. I don't know why. It puts me in this weird funk where I'm just like, I don't care.
Well, see, Roseanne is actually, to me, it's different because it's so, like, I feel like Roseanne, like, the comedy of it, it's like even, it works today too.
Does it?
Yeah, you gotta give it a shot.
I've watched some episodes and they weren't terrible.
Yeah.
I just really had no interest.
I just thought that it was comedy and drama, and I really appreciate that. But, Andrew, I think it's time for us
Let's
to sign off for this
We went
week.
really spiritual heavy this show, but I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it.
That's who we are, dude.
We're gonna go in and out of topics hard, and that's what we do.
Do you know what?
Next time we're gonna talk about artificial intelligence.
Haters gonna hate.
Tim, tell them how to find us. Tell them what to do.
All right, you can find us at YouTube by searching for Still Moving Podcast. You can find us on Facebook, on our Facebook page. Please like and subscribe, both on YouTube and on Facebook.
Yeah, we're still doing that thing where we're gonna be giving stuff away.
Yeah.
For 100. We just haven't got there yet.
No.
But and we also have only done 3 shows now
On YouTube, yeah.
on
That's our third show
YouTube and Facebook. Still haven't got the back catalog. I think we're just gonna scrap the back catalog almost.
Well, we'll keep the files and when we get real famous, we'll release a gold album.
Yeah, we'll be like, this is where it started.
But
that's basically it.
we want to thank you so much for joining us for Still Moving Podcast. Hopefully you'll be here next week.
We need to get consistent.
We need to work on our consistency.
We're very busy people.
We're very important. You don't realize that.
Like, I'm like the President of the United States. I don't want to be that anymore right now.
Thank you so much for listening this week or watching this week. We love you. Have a good, I don't know, good day or something. Is that a good way to end it?
I don't really know. You ever think about like time?